I want to be honest with you. Feedback is not my favorite thing. I feel like I'm serving my heart up on a platter and asking people to evaluate my soul. It can feel very personal, and it creates a vulnerability inside of me that can be stressful. And early on in my business, it used to be one of the hardest things. I would stand on stage, I would do my best to inspire people with the instructions that I got from the people who were planning the event, and then they would send out a questionnaire. It's always blind. I never knew who it was and what the questions were or anything like that. And then I would get this feedback, and usually there were people that said, "You changed my life," and then there were other people who said, along with the fish and chicken selection, the speaker was pretty good. And there could be, every so often, one or two people that really hated my guts and wished that I would hang up speaking altogether. I've gotten what I affectionately call hate mail, people who have sent me letters or notes questioning why I'm doing this, and I've gotten tons of feedback of people who really liked what I did. And early on, when I depended on the feedback to determine how I was going to feel about what was going on, it was a struggle, because feedback, no matter what you think about it, is integral to success. I like to say it's the oxygen for success. You absolutely need it in order to do well. So what do? You don't want to retire to bed in a deep depression every time someone says something difficult to you. And while you love all of those great things that people are saying, you need to know what to work on. What do you do? Well, I would say, first of all, that there's many different ways to get feedback. You can ask someone for feedback. You can also listen for what they're doing. If they're not responding, if they're not understanding what it is that you're saying, that is a sort of feedback. Like, I always ask the people that I speak to, my audience, which strategy are you going to use from what I gave you? And when I see a lot of strategies that were not one of the 6 or 7 things that I shared with them, I take that as feedback that I wasn't clear enough about what the strategies were. They're not remembering them. And when people understand and they say number 2 or number 6 or whatever, and they're really connected, I realize that I did a good job. I can get feedback by whether people buy or not when I'm speaking, or if I'm coaching, if people sign on for new courses or they rush the back of the room to get my book, I know I did what I needed to do. I also can get feedback internally. If my heart is racing, if I feel frustrated, if I can't sleep, that's real feedback that I need to make a change. So there's lots of ways to get feedback, but I wanted to focus in this video on bad feedback. And what do you do when it's negative? I shouldn't say bad, but when it's negative feedback, you're getting something, maybe they're not very kind, maybe they're really questioning why you're doing what you're doing and whether this is a good fit. And you think, wow, I'm doing the best that I can, and this is a place of passion for me, so what do I do with this? And I want to give you 4 things that you shouldn't do. And then if you want to know more, I've given you 7 things in the blog link in the comments of this video that you can use to respond to difficult feedback, because that's really where we need to go. We love the good feedback, so I don't need to worry about that. I think you should soak that up and feel gratitude for it, but let's focus in on the things that I know that you need to respond to and you need to soak it in, but I don't want you to do these 4 things. So number 1, I don't want you to avoid feedback. You know, you really need to know how people feel. They're telling you anyway. But if you can turn to feedback, if you can turn to the responses, and you can say, what is it that you're telling me? I want to know what it is so that I can address it, so that I can absorb it, so I can fully understand the people that I am serving, which includes people who don't get what you're doing, then you will be stronger. So first of all, spiritually speaking, in your soul, don't avoid feedback. I know why you do. It is hard to be open to feedback when there are people who have abused you in some way and you feel like hurt from that. There's a deep hurt. But please, I promise you, just embrace the feedback. Don't avoid it. Number 2, don't just toss it out. Just because the person doesn't get you, just because the person didn't express themselves appropriately, or they used a way that maybe wasn't the best way to communicate with you, doesn't mean that you have to accept everything, but you don't need to reject it either. Don't just automatically throw it out. Please sift through the feedback to see if there's anything that you need to understand. Even when someone's incredibly unkind, I still honor the feedback and take a look at it, and you look at what words they chose or where in the process did they derail, so that I can fully understand the situation and possibly make changes. Number 3, I don't want you to defend yourself. That's not what feedback is for. It's not that these people are the jury and they're going to judge you. That's not the way that you should think about it. And you're not going to grow if you're always defending your position. Your position is whatever it is that your position is. I assume that when you took whatever your product or service was to your audience and you said, here's the thing that I'm offering you, I'm assuming that you did the best that you could under the circumstances. So we already know that. This feedback is not about your worthiness or your quality. It's just giving you a little bit of information so that you can get better. And the last thing that I don't want you to do is I don't want you to accept it in its entirety. You know, sometimes I think that a lot of times people tend to really give a lot of value to negative feedback. You know, you need 100 attaboys to compensate for that one negative comment. And I don't want you to allow that to just go directly into your soul. You should have a little bit of a barrier, both positive and negative. And you should take a good look at the feedback for what it is and really listen to what the content is. But I don't want you to just accept it at face value and then, you know, like sometimes when I accept things at face value, it's really depressing, and I'll have a moment where I think, why am I even doing this? Maybe I should quit. That's a sign that you're absorbing it too readily. Make sure that you see feedback for what it is, a moment to pause and examine the situation, but don't allow it to be something that is a reflection of who you are as a person or a business person, because really it's just another piece of information and you should keep on going. So don't avoid the feedback. It's really good for your success. I have come to find out that it is an amazing part of my journey, and most of the time I've been able to use it in a really good way. And I appreciate your feedback watching this thing all the way to the end. So please, if you want more coaching like this, join me at my Facebook group, 180 Life Coaching. You just go out there and look for it. It's a private group. You can go to lizneed.com to find out more under Transformation School, and make sure that you subscribe to this video so that you can get more encouragement every day. I hope that this helped you, and I hope that you will embrace feedback in a whole different way.